Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today, Joey Garrison of the Tennessean, Steven Hale of the Nashville scene. We're talking about some of the big issues that have been going on in Metro government. Mayor Megan Barry and her resignation did not figure as an issue in this race, but there are some feelings, and I'd like to get you two guys' opinions about this. If her issues either had never occurred or were not found out until before this election, would this referendum been a lot easier to pass? Would it be likely this transit referendum would have passed pretty easily come up May 1st? Yeah,
well, I think it would have been a major advantage to the pro-transit referendum people to have her as the chief salesperson. Before the admission of the affair, she had, you know, approval ratings in the mid-70s. She rolled out the transit plan as her proposal. And so I think they would have been a better standing, you know, to have her as the one pushing it. She would have been featured in all the TV ads and stuff. And I will say, like, during that whole 2-month process, or 6 weeks or so with the scandal going on, they really kind of lost an opportunity there to message. And it was as the no tax for tracks people were starting to do their message. So it was a real critical period.
That retooling was tough for them, wasn't it, Steve?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I think Joey's exactly right. I mean, there were 30, 40 days there where a lot of stuff just wasn't getting done from the mayor's office, from the administration, broadly speaking, as it relates to the transit referendum. And even when they tried to, this thing was hanging over it. And so on the one hand, I think, you know, her resigning got rid of that awkwardness, yeah. But I do think there's no denying that she was hugely popular and she would have been a huge asset to the effort.
Now, Mayor Barry's not completely faded from sight. She's pretty active on Facebook. Stephen, Joey, your Tennessean's written a couple of stories about that recently, about her activity on that. Why is that news?
Well, I think there was one column that was written, and yeah, I think after a month of sort of staying out of the public light, the mayor in the past week or so has been real active on social media. She's also been at various events. She was at the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. event at Fifth and Woolworths the other day. And I think what you're seeing is pretty quickly her starting to rehabilitate her public image and her persona out there. And she's been, you know, very active 6 weeks after resigning. And I think actually Saturday she's going to be spinning records at Grimey's. It's a record store in town for the National Record Store Day. So she'll be doing that Saturday afternoon.
Wild speculation. Is she coming a political comeback? Do you look to see her running for office, maybe not mayor again or something?
Would not
maybe
be
3 years
surprised.
when her probation is over?
I think she could be. I would not rule that out. I don't have any inside information to say that she is looking at a particular seat and planning to do that, but I think you know, I wouldn't be surprised if she does try to do that.
I wouldn't either. I mean, two things real quickly on this. I wouldn't discount one. She's a very social person before all this. I mean, you know, before she was mayor, she would host parties. Her and her husband were kind of the center of a certain corner of Nashville social life, and so she seems to be just getting back to that. And the other thing is, yeah, you can't discount how much people like her when they're around her. She's a very likable, popular person.
When you see her now at these public events, how is she being reacted to and received? People are being nice, friendly to her? Is it
actually,
like
I have not personally seen her at, have you, Steven?
No,
I mean, I've not happened to be at some of the ones. I'm trying to think here.
You guys have been too busy, you need to get out.
Yeah, I mean, I just haven't, but it is interesting. I mean, she was known as, I would say, the most visible mayor in Nashville's history, and she's still, it looks like she's going to maintain a real visible public role in Nashville, even out of the mayor's office.
Vice Mayor David Briley has now become Mayor Briley. He's been sworn in to take over as mayor at least until there's a special election. Hale, how's his performance being assessed so far from what you hear from talking around the courthouse and talking to voters?
I think generally well from certain groups, I should say. I mean, I think, you know, he was quick to get support from some of the business folks in town. I think the Nashville Business Coalition, those folks who felt comfortable with him sort of steering the ship until the Megan Barry's term, or what was going to be her term, ends in August of 2019. You know, he's been dealt immediately the transit referendum, sort of as, whether he wanted it or not, his project at this point, right off the bat, and that's going to interplay obviously with his election, which, as you said earlier in the broadcast, is now May 24th, following that Supreme Court ruling.
Stephen, he's in his honeymoon period, I suppose, of some sort. But why then does he have a field of 12 people opposing him for serving the rest of the term?
It's a fair question. I think the spontaneity of this mayoral election has inspired some candidates who wouldn't otherwise maybe even be running to jump into it. I mean, I think it's worth noting, and maybe I'll eat my words on this, but there's a long list of candidates. There's a few candidates who we would probably say are prominent and real factors in the race. But yeah, it has been wild to see people jump in. I think because no one saw it coming, they figure, well, why not?
Mayor Briley's team announced that his campaign team announced they had raised $400,000 in about a month. It was at that time thought the election was going to be in August. Now the election is going to be May 24th. That's a big advantage for him, right? Because you have such a short
huge
period
advantage.
of time.
I mean, no one else has been really, he got such a jump start on fundraising before others even got in. They were the folks who got in initially thought it was going to be August. I'm not sure who among this slate is really going to be able to remotely compete fundraising-wise. Maybe Carol Swain, who has some national prestige there among Tea Party and other Republican activists. She has Rick Santorum, who's going to be down, and another Fox and Friends host, I believe, for a fundraiser. And so maybe she can get some money. Gilmore Love, Representative Love, Councilwoman Gilmore, maybe they can raise some. But I mean, he's just such. It's hard for me to imagine too many others besides Briley even being in position to go on television with ads.
In this race, there's already been one poll out from the Tennessee Star. Now that's kind of a Breitbart of Tennessee publication, but it shows Carol Swain with 9% of the vote. Is that if that's even accurate? Is that a surprising number for her, considering that yes, she's had some notoriety from her time at Vanderbilt, but not anything sustained like you'd have if you're in an elected office? And she's well ahead of both Gilmore and
you mean it's surprising that she is second as opposed?
Well, she would be the one that would be second and be second with 9% of the vote. And that's not a big number, but compared to having
I'm not sure if it surprises me too much. I mean, these aren't she does have quite a bit of name recognition with so many candidates. It's splitting some various factions out there.
Yeah, Ralph Bristol takes some of her vote too, as far as concerned.
Yeah, and you have Love and Gilmore, both in the race, and both of those draw off a similar base as well. And so, it doesn't shock me, I guess, that it's still pretty low there, and so, but it could be somebody, I think, like a Carol Swain who comes in second.
She's also been out against the transit referendum, and even though this is Nashville, look at Trump's popularity in Tennessee, broadly speaking. So she's a Trump supporter. There are some people here, presumably, who feel that way and who will support her on that basis.
Joey Garrison of the TENNESSEAN, Steven Hale of the Nashville Scene are our guests. We're talking now about the upcoming mayoral race. The election's held on May 24th. Back to continue that conversation and other Metro news after this break.